Welcome to the eerie hour. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. They wait in the forgotten corners of forgotten towns, draped in the long, patient silence of things left behind. They wait in the air, thick with the dust of decades, holding their breath until someone finally pushes the door open. They wait for you to step across the threshold, for curiosity to outweigh caution, for the mundane world to peel back and reveal the slow, cold heart of something ancient and strange. This is one of those places, a store that time itself seems to have bypassed, a forgotten relic at the edge of everything familiar, whispering secrets only the dust remembers. If you enjoy descending into the strange and the forgotten, don't forget to like and subscribe and share your theories below. Now, let's begin. But remember, once the story starts, something always follows. You stand before the place, the old store, its facade a canvas of peeling paint and stubborn grime. The sign, once bright, is now a ghost itself. Letters weathered away until they are illegible. A forgotten name hanging by a single groaning bolt in the infrequent breeze. A faint, sickly sweet scent, like decaying flowers, and something else, something darker, drifts from its darkened doorway. You came on a whim, a flicker of curiosity, sparked by local whispers of a place untouched, perhaps containing forgotten treasures. The door, surprisingly, yields to a gentle push, scraping against aged wood. Stepping inside, the noise of the outside world dies instantly, swallowed by a profound, heavy silence. It presses in on you, muffling your own breath, amplifying the tentative creak of the floorboards beneath your worn boots. Dust, fine and ancient, hangs in the air like a perpetual mist, catching the weak shafts of light that pierce the grimy front window. It coats everything: stacks of collapsed boxes, shrouded lumps that were once furniture, shelves sagging under the weight of unidentifiable clutter. You inhale, and the dust is there too, dry and thick, settling instantly in your lungs, on your tongue, clinging to your clothes like a second skin. The sweet, heavy smell is stronger here, a cloying perfume of dust and something else, something that feels like dried tears or old secrets. It's unnerving. The front of the store is a chaotic tableau of abandonment, a graveyard of forgotten objects draped in spectral white sheets of dust. But your gaze is drawn past the aisles choked with debris toward the back. There, a heavy, dark curtain hangs like a shroud, or perhaps it hides a door. Locals spoke of storage, of nothing more, but the air near that curtain feels different. It is colder, stiller, possessing a depth that seems impossible within these walls, as if the space back there extends further than it should. The initial spark of curiosity that led you here, gutters and dies, replaced by a prickle of unease that prickles on your skin, raising the fine hairs on your arms. It settles deep in your gut, a cold, heavy weight. This place isn't merely old or forgotten, it feels waiting. And as you watch the curtain, the dust covering a nearby unseen object seems to subtly, impossibly, shift and settle faster than gravity should allow, as if something just disturbed it from the inside out. The silence holds, but it feels precarious now, thin as stretched glass. The dust, clinging to everything, seems to watch. Welcome to the eerie hour. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. Imagine a place forgotten by time, a store where the air is thick with a stillness that feels both ancient and unnerving. Dust motes dance in the single shaft of light slicing through the gloom, less like particles and more like tiny lost souls swirling in quiet desperation. Here, the shelves are stocked with items that seem to have no purpose, no connection to the world outside, and the only sound is the soft scuff of your own hesitant steps on the bare floorboards. This is a place that asks questions without speaking, a place that feels less like a building and more like a presence. If you enjoyed descending into the strange and the forgotten, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share your theories below. Now let's begin, but remember, once the story starts, something always follows. The air in the main section of the store is cool, carrying the faint, dry scent of forgotten things. But there, at the back, where a heavy, faded velvet curtain hangs like a shroud, something feels different. An inexplicable pull begins, a silent invitation or perhaps a command, drawing you toward the periphery of this back area, this forbidden zone hidden behind the barrier. As you approach, the air grows perceptibly colder, the temperature dropping with each slow step, as if you are nearing an open grave or a place where the sun has never touched. The sensory details intensify, pressing in. The dry scent of dust is still present, but now it's overlaid with something else, something cloying, almost suffocating, like withered flowers left to rot in a sealed room, or the metallic tang of old pennies, and something vaguely organic. The silence behind the curtain seems to press in on you, denser than any vacuum, an absence that feels heavier than any sound. You strain to hear something, anything from behind it, your breath catching in your throat. And sometimes, just on the edge of audibility, a sound brushes against your awareness, a faint whisper, perhaps, or a low, resonant hum that vibrates deep in your bones. It is too indistinct to be sure, easy to dismiss as imagination, the mind playing tricks in the oppressive quiet. But it leaves a lasting tremor, a ripple of unease that settles cold in your stomach. Small anomalies begin to prick at the edges of your perception. You notice an object on a dusty shelf in the front store, a small, tarnished silver locket that you distinctly remember seeing by the back curtain only moments ago. It is now back in its original place, untouched by dust, sitting precisely where you first saw it upon entering. The dust itself, the recurring motif of this place, seems to possess a life of its own near the back barrier. It swirls briefly near the hem of the curtain, forming miniature eddies without any hint of a draft, or settles into unnerving patterns on the floorboards, lines and symbols that seem almost deliberate before scattering away. This causes your first significant mental break, a growing sense of paranoia and self-doubt. Did you truly see that locket move? Are you hearing things in the silence? Or is the silence itself the source of the sound? The suggestion hangs heavy in the air. Something unseen exists beyond the barrier, and it is influencing the immediate environment, subtly, terrifyingly, just at the edges of sight and sound. The whispers, once faint and fleeting, seem to gather density near the velvet curtain, coalescing into something that feels almost conversational, though still utterly unintelligible. They are like insects buzzing just outside your hearing range, an incessant, maddening chorus of non-sound. You press an ear cautiously towards the heavy fabric, the pile of the velvet surprisingly cold against your skin. The cloying scent is strongest here, like wet earth and something sharp, like spilled ink. The air feels wrong, thick and resistant, as if you could push against it like water. You stand there for a long time, rooted to the spot, straining. This intense focus, this desperate attempt to decipher the noise, pulls you further from the familiar boundaries of reality. Your thoughts become fragmented, looping. How long have you been standing here? Hours? Days? Time loses its meaning in this pocket of cold and sound. This disorientation marks a deepening psychological fracture, a loss of stable ground. You feel a profound sense of detachment, as if you are watching yourself from a distance, a puppet manipulated by unseen strings. The dust motif takes on a more disturbing aspect. It doesn't just swirl now. It seems to cling to the surface of the curtain itself, outlining faint, elongated shapes that could be wrinkles in the fabric, or perhaps fingers. The patterns on the floor are sharper now, more intricate, less like random settling and more like deliberate script written in fine powder, though the symbols refuse to resolve into anything recognizable. You blink, and the pattern shifts, reforming instantly into something else. Another object is out of place. A small, wooden bird carving that was on a high shelf is now sitting on the floor directly in front of the curtain, its carved eyes seeming to stare at the fabric barrier. It feels like a test or a deliberate provocation from whatever resides behind the veil. Is the boundary truly just velvet and air, or is it something else entirely? Something that allows things to pass through selectively, deliberately placing them to sow confusion. The air behind you feels different now, too, colder than it should be, even away from the curtain. It's as if the chill has spread from the back area, infecting the rest of the store. You find yourself glancing over your shoulder constantly, expecting to see the shadows detach themselves from the corners of the room. The whispers seem to echo from the front of the store sometimes, making you spin around. But there is only the silent dust and the unsettling stillness. The uncertainty is a gnawing thing, eating away at your sense of self. You begin to doubt your own memory, your own senses. Did you even arrive here today? Or have you always been standing by this curtain, listening to sounds that aren't there, watching dust that dances to an unheard tune? The ambiguous nature of your experience becomes the only certainty. You are trapped between what you believe you saw and what this place insists is real. The air shifts again, the temperature plummeting further, stealing your breath in ragged gasps. The cloying scent intensifies, sickeningly sweet now, like rot under honey. The whispers behind the curtain rise fractionally in volume, coalescing into a sound that is not words, not quite, but more like a language spoken by something without a mouth, a sound that resonates deep within your bones and makes your teeth ache. It feels like immense pressure, not on your eardrums, but on your mind itself, pushing, trying to force something in. This sonic assault is the central uncanny event, a direct, non-visual communication from the unseen. It bypasses understanding and targets pure feeling, dread, submission, infinite loneliness. You stagger back from the curtain, hands clamped over your ears, but the sound is internal now, echoing in the hollow spaces behind your eyes. The dust motif becomes actively hostile. It no longer just swirls or forms patterns. It rises from the floorboards, not in motes, but in sheets, forming translucent veils that drift through the store, obscuring your vision. Near the curtain, it seems to thicken, briefly coalescing into vague, shifting forms that writhe and dissipate, like smoke shapes seen in a fever dream. One such shape drifts towards you, and as it passes, the air within it feels impossibly cold. a physical manifestation of the chill that has permeated the store. Your psychological fracture deepens into a terrifying delusion. You see yourself reflected in the glass counter, or rather, you see something reflected there, a figure coated in dust, its features indistinct, its posture hunched and vacant. It looks like you, but empty, a shell animated by the dust itself. For a horrifying moment, you cannot distinguish yourself from the dust figure in the reflection. Am I the one standing here, or is that thing in the glass the true me, trapped in this place? The silence behind the curtain is gone, replaced by that terrible, resonating pressure. The atmospheric detail is the feeling of the dust itself, not just seen, but felt on your skin, in your mouth, like a fine, suffocating powder that seems to be drawing the moisture from your body. Every breath feels like inhaling chalk and decay. The misplaced object is back, the small silver locket. But it's no longer merely on a shelf. It's hanging by a single thread from the very center of the curtain, swaying slightly as if disturbed by an unseen hand. This feels less like a misplacement and more like an offering, or perhaps a lure. The ambiguity is absolute. Is the pressure a voice calling you, or the sound of the barrier straining to contain something? Is the dust a veil, or is it the substance of this place, or even the substance of whatever is behind the curtain? The silence that follows the resonating pressure is absolute. A sudden, stark absence of sound that feels more violent than the noise itself. It leaves your head ringing, a phantom echo of the terrible hum. You stand amidst the settling dust, which now coats everything in a uniform gray layer, softening the edges of the shelves, the counter, the objects, making them all seem less distinct, less real. The intense pressure on your mind has receded, but it has left behind a residue, a heavy, dull ache that sits behind your eyes and makes coherent thought difficult. The paranoia hasn't vanished. It has merely transformed into a quiet, persistent certainty that you are not alone, and that whatever is behind the curtain is aware of you, perhaps even expecting something. The psychological residue is a profound sense of unreality. The store feels alien, even more so than when you first entered. The dust, the recurring motif, is everywhere, a constant, tangible reminder of the strangeness. It clings to your clothes, your hair, your skin. You can taste it faintly on your tongue. It is no longer just dust. It feels like part of the place itself, or perhaps a residue of the presence behind the barrier. The unanswered questions linger in the oppressive quiet. What was that sound? What is behind the curtain? Why the dust, the objects, the cold? The barrier hangs impassive, a heavy, silent challenge. The store is quiet now, unnaturally so, but it doesn't feel empty. It feels watchful. And if you hear it again tonight, don't answer. Not yet. The curtain at the back of the store hangs like a final judgment, heavy and dark. An impossible barrier. Your focus narrows, fixating on the slight gap where it meets the wall, on the way it doesn't quite touch the floor. There must be a way. You reach out, fingers brushing the thick, unfamiliar fabric. It feels dry, static, clinging to your skin. You pull gently. It doesn't budge. You press against it, searching for a seam, a handle, anything suggesting a door. Nothing. Just the solid, unyielding presence of whatever is on the other side, separated by this veil. You run your hands along the wall beside the curtain, searching for a hidden latch, a loose panel. The brick is cold, rough. Your fingers find only grit and the persistent low hum. The hum. It's not just heard now, it's felt. A deep vibration originating from behind the curtain, traveling through the floor, resonating in your bones, in the marrow. It feels like being inside a vast, silent machine that is slowly, inexorably coming to life. And the whispers. They are no longer a mere rustle of dry leaves or distant voices. They coil and twist into something sharper, closer. They almost form words. You strain to listen, holding your breath, trying to pick a single thread from the tangled knot of sound. It sounds like language, ancient and sharp, but it slips away, just out of conscious grasp, leaving only the feeling of meaning, not the meaning itself. It's like trying to remember a word that sits on the tip of your tongue but refuses to be named. Frustration twists in your gut, but beneath it, something colder blooms. Confusion. You turn to retrace your steps, to get a better angle, to find a tool perhaps tucked away on a shelf. But the aisle is wrong. It's shorter than you remember, or maybe longer. The shelves are stocked differently, the arrangement subtly altered. You pause, a prickle of unease crawling up your neck. You try again, navigating back towards where you entered the store. The path seems to stretch or contract unpredictably. The back, where the curtain hangs, feels closer now, unnervingly so, even as you move away from it. The physical space is no longer fixed. It breathes. It shifts. It is influenced by whatever resides behind that barrier. As you move, you notice the dust. It's thicker here, near the back, swirling in lazy eddies in the dim air. And among the dust, on the floor beside a warped shelf, you see it. A small shape, intricate, like a miniature key carved from the dust itself. You kneel, reaching out. As your finger draws near, it trembles, fragile, and before you can touch it, it collapses, scattering into formless powder. A recurring symbol of this place, these fleeting, impossible objects of dust. You find a mother, a tiny, coiled serpent, equally delicate, equally ephemeral. Why here? Why made of dust? The confusion deepens, spreading like a fog in your mind. You try to recall why you came to the store today. Was it for something specific? A book? An antique? The reason eludes you. The memories of the past few days, maybe even weeks, feel hazy, unreliable. They are like the dust objects, fragile, disintegrating at the slightest touch of focused thought. A faded note tucked into your pocket, clutched there since when? You pull it out. Cryptic words, a strange diagram. It made little sense before, but now, in this shifting space, surrounded by the whispering hum and the dust that forms keys, it seems to mock you. It hints at something, a nature of the back you cannot grasp, only feel. Your mind, like the store's layout, is no longer stable. It is mutating, becoming unfamiliar, reflecting the unsettling reality pressing in from behind the curtain. You are losing your footing, not just in the store, but in yourself. What happens when the aisles shift so much you can no longer find your way back to who you were? Welcome to the eerie hour. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. If you enjoy descending into the strange and the forgotten, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share your theories below. Now, let's begin. But remember, once the story starts, something always follows. You find yourself standing just inside the threshold, the bell above the door failing to announce your arrival. It hangs motionless, caught in a web of fine dust that seems to cling to everything. The glass counter, the faded posters, the very air you breathe. The scent is faint at first, something like old paper and decay, a smell that suggests forgotten corners and long-held secrets. It feels as though time has simply stopped here, arrested mid-breath within these walls. The shelves lining the narrow aisles are deep and shadowy, filled with objects that seem both familiar and utterly alien, their purposes obscured by layers of neglect. You reach out a hand, fingers tracing the gritty surface of a ceramic figurine near the counter. It's a small, unsettling thing, a doll perhaps, its painted eyes fixed in a wide, unnerving stare. A profound quiet hangs in the air, not the quiet of emptiness, but of something holding its breath, listening. A sense of unease, subtle but insistent, begins to coil in your gut. It's the feeling that you weren't meant to be here, that this place exists outside the normal flow of things. You take a step further inside, the floorboards silent beneath your weight, which feels impossible in such an old structure. The dust stirs slightly at your movement, catching the dim light from the street outside, swirling in lazy, luminous eddies. The silence answers your presence, deepening, becoming less an absence of sound and more a palpable heavy weight pressing down. This is the first fracture, the initial doubt. Why are you here? What drew you across the threshold into this waiting quiet? The doll's eyes seem to follow your movement, though you know that's impossible. It's just the light, you tell yourself, just the dust playing tricks on your eyes. But the feeling persists, a cold tendril touching the edge of your mind. The silence from Section 1 deepens, stretching like thin glass that feels ready to shatter. The air, thick with the smell of aged dust and something else you can't quite name, like metal mixed with rain, grows colder the further you move from the door, which now seems impossibly distant behind you. The aisles stretch on, longer than the building should allow, twisting and turning in ways that defy simple architecture. Shelves rise towards a ceiling lost in gloom, laden with forgotten things. You pass racks of clothing that appear to be from no recognizable era. Their fabrics heavy and strange to the touch, damp velvet and rough wool. On a lower shelf, nestled between rows of identical, unmarked boxes, you see it. Another doll, identical to the one by the counter, but older, its painted features cracked and faded, one eye missing entirely. Its remaining eye, a dull chip of porcelain, seems to hold a sorrowful accusation. This repetition of the doll, identical yet different, feels less like a coincidence and more like a deliberate placement, a signpost pointing into the uncanny heart of the store. A faint sound reaches you now, carried on the strangely cool air. A low, rhythmic thump-thump, like a heartbeat coming from the depths of the store. Too slow, too heavy, almost subterranean. It sets your teeth on edge. A wave of confusion washes over you, profound and disorienting. How long have you been walking? Minutes? Hours? The linearity of time seems to fray around the edges here. The dust motif grows stronger. It no longer just coats surfaces, but seems to hang in the air like a veil, blurring the lines of the shelves and obscuring the objects within. It catches in your throat, making you cough, a dry, rasping sound swallowed immediately by the oppressive quiet. You try to retrace your steps, but the aisle behind you has shifted, presenting a dead end of stacked crates where the entrance should be. Thump thump. The sound is closer now, or perhaps it is simply louder within your own skull. The dull single eye seems to bore into your back as you turn away. It's just a doll, you tell yourself again. But the thought holds no conviction. What if it isn't? What if it's watching? A rhythmic thump-thump from Section 2 has ceased, replaced by an even more unnerving quiet. This silence is not empty. It is brimming with unspoken presence, a heavy awareness that makes the air prickle on your skin. You feel profoundly, undeniably watched. The aisles have continued their impossible expansion, leading you deeper into the store's heart than the building could logically contain. You pass sections dedicated to items that seem purely conceptual, shelves groaning under the weight of unspoken words, lost gestures, and forgotten names. Each title is etched onto dusty wooden plaques above the shelves. The atmosphere of detail is the scent, now much stronger, sickly sweet, like overly ripe fruit left to rot, but undercut with something sharp and chemical, like old perfume trying to mask decay. It coats the back of your tongue, making you feel nauseous. Your psychological fracture deepens into profound disorientation. You find yourself standing before a dusty mirror, leaning against a stack of impossible books titled The History of Doors That Never Opened. Your reflection is there, but muted, indistinct behind a thick film of dust. And then you notice it. Your reflection isn't moving in perfect sync. Its eyes linger on something over your shoulder for a fraction too long. Its expression one of chilling, vacant calm that you know isn't on your own face. This is the central supernatural event. The reflection has a life, or perhaps an observer, of its own. The dust, the recurring motif, is no longer just on surfaces or in the air. It coats the inside of your mouth, makes your eyes itch, and seems to actively obscure your vision, shimmering and shifting at the edges of your sight. It feels like a physical barrier, limiting your perception of the store and perhaps even yourself. A low murmur begins just beneath the threshold of hearing, seeming to come from the aisles around you, indistinct and impossible to place. It sounds like many voices whispering at once, not to you, but simply near you, like the static between thoughts. The ambiguous line hangs heavy in the air. Are you seeing what is there, or is something showing you only what it wants you to see? The doll motif surfaces again, not physically but in the periphery of your vision. Small, still shapes tucked amongst the impossible inventory, always just out of focus, their painted eyes seeming to track your bewildered path. The boundary between the front and back areas of the store has dissolved entirely. If such a boundary ever truly existed, you find yourself inexplicably standing deeper within the store than you thought possible, surrounded by shelves of unfamiliar, dust-shrouded items that shouldn't be there, objects that hum with a silent, resonant wrongness. The smell has become overwhelming, sickly sweet and thick, almost like perfume, desperately attempting to mask a deep, fundamental decay. It is a physical presence in your lungs. The silence is no longer empty, but feels profoundly occupied, a heavy, watchful presence that presses in from all sides, a tangible weight on your chest. The dust is everywhere now, not just coating surfaces, but clinging to your clothes, your hair, coating the inside of your mouth with a dry, gritty film. It seems to limit your vision, the air so thick with it that objects appear hazy and indistinct, just shifting forms in the gloom. Your mental descent is profound. Memory loss and dissociation have taken hold. You lose track of time, each moment dissolving into the next without anchor. You try to remember your name, but it feels distant, a forgotten sound attached to someone else. You question if you ever existed outside this store, if the life you think you remember was just a dream conjured by the dust and the quiet. The recurring motif of dust is now oppressively physical, a constant irritant, a veil over reality. And the unnerving sounds are clearer now, though still not fully intelligible. They feel less like external noises and more like thoughts whispered directly into your mind, disjointed fragments of forgotten languages or primal fears. The paranormal core is the direct intrusion of this back into your reality and consciousness, blurring the lines between dimensions or states of being. This place is not just a store, it is an intersection, a thin place where something waits. The ambiguous line echoes in the occupied silence. Is the dust obscuring your sight, or is it revealing the truth of what this place is made of? The bizarre and impossible objects encountered in the inventory, clocks that tick backwards, books bound in what feels like dried skin, instruments that make no sound, feel like deliberate foreshadowing, hints of the forces that watch and influence you directly now, nudging thoughts into your mind like dust motes settling on a surface. The intrusion from Section 4 escalates beyond whispers into thoughts you know are not your own. They are cold, ancient concepts, feelings of profound weariness and boundless waiting. You feel a physical sensation now, beyond the dust and the smell, a creeping numbness in your extremities, as though the store is slowly absorbing you, incorporating your substance into its vast, dusty inventory. The oppressive silence is broken by a single clear sound, the slow, deliberate drip of liquid onto a non-existent floor. Somewhere just out of sight, down one of the impossibly long aisles, each drip echoes in the vast quiet, measured and chilling, a heartbeat for a place that should not live. This measured dripping is the new atmospheric detail, a tiny point of focus in the overwhelming decay. Your psychological fracture is near complete. You no longer feel like a single, coherent person. You is a fragile concept, easily lost in the haze of dust and borrowed thoughts. When you try to remember your name, the whispered sounds that aren't yours offer alternatives, sounds that feel wrong, ancient, like names for things that shouldn't exist. The dust motif takes on a new form. You notice it isn't just settling, but seems to move against the draftless air, shifting in patterns, forming indistinct shapes at the periphery of your vision. Faces, perhaps, or limbs made of compressed decay. This is the central supernatural event. The dust itself is animate, forming fleeting, impossible figures that watch from the gloom. The dolls, the recurring motif, reappear not on shelves, but tucked into corners. Behind impossible stacks of items, their silent painted stares seeming to hold a terrible understanding of your plight. They are posed in subtly different ways than before, suggesting they move when you are not looking, or perhaps when you no longer have eyes to see. The ambiguous line solidifies into a horrifying question. Are you just lost in the inventory, or are you becoming part of it? The feeling of being watched has intensified, no longer just a feeling, but a certainty. The eyes of the dust shapes, the still eyes of the dolls, the weight of the occupied silence. All focused upon your dissolving self. Somehow, you are outside, or perhaps the store is outside of you now. The intensity has receded, leaving behind a profound, aching emptiness where your sense of self used to reside. The air is different, cleaner, free of the sickly sweet decay and the heavy dust, but it feels wrong, thin and insubstantial, compared to the density of the store's occupied silence. The psychological residue is immense. The memory loss persists, a vast blank space where your past should be. Your name feels like a word someone else spoke long ago. The feeling of dissociation is a constant companion, as though you are watching yourself from a great distance, observing actions that don't feel entirely your own. The store is gone, or perhaps it was never truly a physical place, but a state of being you briefly inhabited. Yet, the unanswered questions linger, like dust motes caught in the fading light of memory. How did you get there? How did you leave? What were the impossible items, the sounds like thoughts, the moving dust? Was the doll watching, or was it warning? The recurring motif of dust hasn't vanished entirely. Though not physically present, you feel it still. A phantom grittiness coating the inside of your mouth. A phantom veil blurring the edges of your vision. A phantom weight on your lungs. It is the residue of that place, imprinted upon your senses, a constant reminder of the boundary that dissolved. Sometimes, in the quiet hours, you hear the faint, disjointed whispers again, seeming to come from just beyond the edge of your hearing, like thoughts not fully formed. Or you catch a fleeting glimpse of a still shape in your periphery, a painted eye staring from the corner of a room. You know you shouldn't listen, shouldn't look too closely. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. And if you hear it again tonight, don't answer. Not yet. Welcome to the eerie hour. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. They stand silent and still on forgotten streets, their windows dark eyes watching the rain, their doors like closed mouths keeping secrets. You might walk past 1,000 times, never noticing the subtle wrongness, the way light bends away from its facade, the deeper silence that seems to cling to its stones. But sometimes something pulls you in. A flicker of curiosity, a strange scent on the wind, a vague memory of needing something you can't quite name. And once you step across the threshold, the air changes, growing heavy and old, smelling of dust and disuse, and something else you can't place. The world outside fades, and the store enfolds you, a silent, dusty maw opening wider than it should. This place wasn't built, it was found, or perhaps it simply is, and it's been waiting for you. If you enjoy descending into the strange and the forgotten, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share your theories below. Now, let's begin. But remember, once the story starts, something always follows. You stand just inside the door. It clicks shut behind you with a soft finality that sounds much louder than it should in the profound silence. The air here is thick, almost chewable, tasting of ages. Dust motes hang suspended in the faint light filtering through grimy windows, slow dancing in the gloom. It's an antique shop, perhaps, but unlike any you've seen. The shelves are crammed with forgotten things, clocks stopped at different moments, books with brittle pages, trinkets that look both familiar and utterly alien. A faint, almost imperceptible scent weaves through the dust, something sweet but with an undercurrent of decay, like old flowers left too long in a closed room. You walk deeper, your footsteps muffled by a thick, worn rug you hadn't noticed on entry. The silence presses in, not just an absence of noise, but a palpable weight. It feels like the store itself is holding its breath. You reach out to touch a small porcelain doll on a shelf. Its painted eyes stare back, fixed and unblinking. They seem to follow your hand as you withdraw it. The air around the doll feels colder. It's a simple toy, surely, but a strange sense of unease coils in your gut, a feeling that this place and everything in it is more than it appears. You move on, drawn by a quiet hum from somewhere further back, a sound that seems to vibrate in your bones rather than your ears. The aisles stretch on longer than the building should allow. The hum grows stronger as you move towards the back, a low, resonant thrum that feels less like sound and more like pressure. The sweet, decaying scent becomes more distinct now, sickly and heavy. The aisles here are narrower, the shelves taller and more tightly packed, groaning under the weight of forgotten things. Dust cascades from every surface with the slightest movement of air, swirling in miniature storms. You notice the dolls again, or a doll perhaps, perched precariously on a high shelf. It's not the same one from before, you think, but it has the same unnervingly fixed gaze. The eyes are chipped, giving it a sorrowful, empty look, yet you feel them tracking you. The silence is broken only by the bone-deep hum and the occasional soft, skittering sound from the ceiling or within the walls. Rats, you tell yourself, just rats in an old building. But the sound is too deliberate, too rhythmic. It doesn't sound like foraging. It sounds like listening. A moment of cold dread washes over you, sudden and sharp, stealing your breath. You can't recall why you came in here. What were you looking for? The thought slips away like water through cupped hands, leaving only a vague anxiety and the persistent magnetic pull towards the back of the store. Ahead, where the hum originates, the shelves give way to a heavy, unvarnished door unlike any other in the building, set into a wall that seems to absorb the dim light. It looks less like an entrance and more like a scar. You reach the door. The hum emanates from behind it, a constant, vibrating pulse. The sweet, suffocating scent is overwhelming now, clinging to your clothes and your skin. You hesitate, your hand hovering over the rough wood. The silence on this side of the door is absolute, save for the internal thrumming and the ragged sound of your own breathing. It feels like the air itself is being held captive, refusing to move or carry sound. A thin line of dust, strangely uniform, traces the base of the door. As you watch, hypnotized by the oppressive quiet, you see a faint ripple disturb the dust line, as if something is shifting just on the other side. It isn't the skittering from before. This is slower, smoother. A cold certainty settles over you. This door is not meant to be opened, not by you. Yet the pull is undeniable, a silent command that bypasses thought. Your hand moves seemingly of its own accord, wrapping around the cool, smooth metal of the doorknob, which is free of the thick dust coating everything else. As your fingers close around it, a sharp crack echoes from somewhere deeper within the store, followed by a sound like shattering glass, though you've seen no windows this far back. You freeze, straining your ears, but the oppressive silence immediately swallows the sound, leaving only the unsettling hum. For a terrifying second, you feel a dissociation, watching your hand on the doorknob as if from a distance, wondering who or what is truly controlling it. Pushing the door open is like stepping into a physical manifestation of the hum and the scent. The air is thick, heavy, and overwhelmingly sweet, now laced with something metallic and sharp. You are no longer in a room, or perhaps you are in a room that defies geometry. It stretches away into an infinite gray void, sparsely populated by pillars of impossibly tall shelves, their tops lost in the distant gloom. Dust hangs everywhere, not falling, but suspended in the air like a solid, hazy sea. It coats everything in a thick gray blanket, muffling any potential sound. This is where the silence truly lives. It is a presence, vast and ancient. The doll motif reappears, not as individual objects, but as vague, shifting shapes in the dust clouds, sometimes coalescing into unsettlingly still forms before dissolving back into the gray haze. They seem to watch you from the periphery of your vision, their painted eyes just pinpricks of darkness in the swirling dust. You feel a profound sense of being observed, of being catalogued. Your thoughts begin to unravel, scattering like the dust motes. Are you part of the inventory now? Is this place collecting you, piece by piece? The air here doesn't just feel silent. It feels like it's inhaling, slowly, deeply, a vast, unseen chest, expanding, drawing the dust, the silence, and your very breath into itself. You are deep within the back of the store now, though it might not resemble a physical space anymore. It is a vast, silent void filled with dust motes that hang unnaturally still, like frozen tears of gray. Or perhaps it is an endless, empty room where impossible shadows writhe just beyond the reach of the faint light that has no source. The sickeningly sweet smell is now the dominant sensory experience, cloying and thick, a suffocating wave that assaults your nose and the back of your throat. It is undeniably tied to the presence that you can now feel distinctly, even if you cannot see it. It is immense, patient, and utterly alien. The silence is no longer just an absence of sound, but seems to breathe, a slow, deep intake and exhalation that resonates within your chest, a counterpoint to the unseen hum. Your mental state reaches a peak of psychological unraveling. Reality is completely fragmented. Thoughts are disjointed, snapping between disjointed images. An antique key turning in a lock that isn't there. The empty eye socket of a shattered doll. The taste of something bitter on your tongue. You experience vivid hallucinations and delusions related to the store's inventory or the dust. The dust motes swirl, forming brief, horrifying shapes, a grasping hand, the screaming face. Objects from your own forgotten past turning to gray powder before your eyes. The paranormal core is the direct confrontation, an abstract and symbolic meeting with the entity or nature of the back. It isn't a creature you can see, but a force you feel. A collector of forgotten things, yes, but more profoundly, a consumer of time and memory. A place where reality itself decays into dust. The dust motif is not just around the entity. It is the entity, or its medium, or its sustenance. The breathing silence deepens with each inhale, feeling as though it's drawing you in, dissolving you into the gray, sweet void. What does it gain from collecting what is lost? The breathing silence begins to recede, the vast, unseen exhalation pushing you gently back. The cloying sweetness remains, a phantom taste on your tongue, but it lessens its suffocating grip. The gray void seems to fold in on itself, the impossible shelves collapsing into a blur of dust and faded color. You find yourself stumbling back through the rough door, which clicks shut behind you with the same soft finality as the front one. You are back in the aisle, the silence here still profound, but without the terrifying, living quality of the space you just left. The dolls on the shelves stare with their fixed, unblinking eyes, just as they did before. But now their gaze feels less like observation and more like pity, or perhaps a shared understanding of the void beyond the wall. The thick dust motes still hang in the air, but they are just dust now, no longer forming shapes that whisper your fears. Your thoughts are still fragmented, the sharp edges of madness dulled but not gone. You can't fully grasp what happened or where you've been. It was a place, wasn't it? A room, or something else entirely. The sweet smell lingers, a constant reminder. As you walk slowly towards the front of the store, your footsteps no longer muffled by the rug that may or may not have been there, you notice a thin line of gray dust clinging to your shoes, remnants of the place where silence breathes. You push the front door open, and the outside world rushes in. Sounds of traffic, the smell of rain, the feeling of cool, clean air. It feels foreign, unreal. You step out, and the door closes behind you. You do not look back. The dust on your shoes remains, a silent companion. And if you hear it again tonight, don't answer. Not yet. Welcome to the eerie hour. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. There are corners of the world, forgotten spaces, draped in the quiet hush of ages, where the veil between what is and what was, or perhaps what is becoming, wears thin. These are the places that breathe when you are not looking, that watch from shadowed shelves and dusty corners. They don't announce themselves with screams or sudden chills. They simply invite you in, offering something you think you desire, only to reveal that you are what is desired. The story unfolds not in grand, terrifying acts, but in the slow accumulation of wrongness, the subtle shift in the air, the growing weight of a presence that feels both ancient and intensely personal. This is not a tale of being chased out, but of being drawn in, dissolved, and reassembled into something else entirely. If you enjoy descending into the strange and the forgotten, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share your theories below. Now let's begin. But remember, once the story starts, something always follows. The bell above the door offers a faint, almost melodic chime as you step inside. It is less a shop and more a cavern of forgotten things, piled high in stacks that defy gravity and reason. Dust motes dance like tiny ghosts in the slivers of light that penetrate the grimy front window. The air is thick, smelling of old paper, dried flowers, and something else you can't quite place. Sweet, heavy, like decaying perfume. You had been walking, simply walking, the rain a fine mist against your face, when you saw the door, standing slightly ajar, an invitation perhaps, or merely overlooked. There is no sign above the entrance, no name to call this place, just the quiet invitation of the open door and the visible chaos within. A low, rhythmic sound pulses beneath the silence, like a slow, deep breath being taken and released. Barely audible, but insistent once you notice it. It seems to come from the back of the store, a place you can only glimpse through narrow aisles crowded with furniture and boxes. You take another step, the floorboards groaning softly underfoot, and the door sighs shut behind you with a soft click that echoes in the sudden, profound silence. The chimes do not sound this time. An immediate sense of being utterly alone washes over you, sharper than the outside rain. But the feeling is wrong. It's not emptiness you sense, but a focused attention. It feels as though the store itself is watching. The myriad objects on the shelves, teacups, tarnished silver frames, folded linens, ceramic figurines with vacant eyes, are collective witnesses. Dust clings to everything, a uniform gray blanket muffling edges, softening contours, making everything look strangely unified, like parts of a single vast organism. You run a finger over a wooden counter, leaving a clean line in the thick layer. But as you watch, a fine powder seems to instantly settle back into place, as if the surface is exhaling. It is the first uncanny event, this immediate resettling of the dust. A gentle, silent refusal to be disturbed. A shiver traces its way down your spine, a cold finger against your skin, but it is not entirely from the air. It is a prickle of deep, ancient unease, a feeling that you have stepped across a threshold, not just into a building, but into a state of being, a place where the rules of the outside world do not apply. You came in from the rain, looking for what? Shelter? A curiosity? You can't quite remember. The dust seems to settle not just on the objects, but on the edges of your thoughts, blurring them into indistinct shapes. Perhaps you were always meant to come here. The aisles beckon, narrow canyons carved through towering stacks of the past. You move deeper, drawn by the subtle, rhythmic exhalation that continues its slow pulse from the store's hidden interior. The light diminishes further, the air growing cooler and heavier. Here, the dust is even thicker, hanging in the air, coating the inside of your nostrils with a dry, earthy smell. It coats the fabric of your coat, settles on your hair. You pass shelves laden with books whose titles are obscured by the gray film, their pages brittle and yellowed, smelling of decay and forgotten stories. Then you see it, a row of dolls perched on a high shelf, their porcelain faces cracked and smudged with dust. Their glass eyes, though cloudy, seem fixed upon you as you pass, an uncanny alignment that feels more than coincidental. You pause, looking back, and one of the dolls, a small one in a faded blue dress, seems to have tilted its head ever so slightly. It's impossible, of course, just the light, or your eyes playing tricks in the gloom. But the image lodges itself in your mind, a tiny seed of disquiet. The central supernatural event occurs subtly, a ripple rather than a wave. As you move past a tall display cabinet filled with chipped glassware, you hear a faint scraping sound from within one of the pieces, like something tiny shifting against glass. You stop, listen. The sound doesn't repeat. You lean closer, peering through the dusty pane, and notice a single tarnished silver key lying among the tumblers. As you watch, mesmerized, the key seems to vibrate, just for a second, a tiny tremor visible only if you are looking closely enough. It feels like a silent invitation, a promise of access to something hidden. This is the atmospheric detail, the tiny sound, the vibrating key, grounded in the stillness and the dust. The psychological fracture deepens. You question what you saw, attributing it to fatigue or the strange air, but the doubt has taken root. Your certainty about the reality of this place begins to erode. The key becomes a new motif, a symbol of locked secrets, of entry and perhaps escape, or deeper imprisonment. Does every lock have a key? Or does every key create a lock? You wonder, the thought feeling alien and heavy in your mind. The rhythmic breath from the back of the store seems to grow a fraction louder. Or perhaps you are just more attuned to it now, recognizing it as the store's slow, continuous inhalation and exhalation, a living entity drawing you further into its depths. The path diverges, offering two equally shadowed aisles. Both disappear into the darkness, swallowed by the sheer volume of accumulated objects. You choose the one on the left, guided by a faint, almost imperceptible draft of cooler air. The rhythmic breathing is clearer now, a soft, resonant sound that vibrates not just in your ears, but in your bones. It is a sound of immense scale, as if something colossal slumbers just beyond your sight. The atmospheric detail here is the scent. It changes, becoming damp and earthy, like turning over soil after a long rain, mingled with something else, metallic and faintly sweet. You stumble, brushing against a rack of clothing, sending a shower of dust into the air. It settles on your skin, feeling cool and soft like fine ash. The central supernatural event happens when you reach a small enclosed alcove. In it sits a single, high-backed chair upholstered in faded velvet, its once rich color now muted by the pervasive dust. On the seat lies a single, pristine white glove. It is utterly free of dust, a stark anomaly in this gray world. As you gaze at it, the glove slowly, deliberately turns itself over, revealing a small, dark stain on its palm. It is a silent, impossible movement, a private gesture meant for you alone. The psychological fracture is immediate and profound. Your mind rebels, insisting it was a trick of the light, a draft, anything but what you saw. Yet the image of the turning glove, the stark white against the dust, the dark stain, burns itself into your consciousness, a horrifying certainty that cannot be reasoned away. The motif of objects deepens in meaning. They are not merely inanimate things here. They are watchers, participants, perhaps even extensions of the store's will. The key motif reappears subtly, tucked beneath the edge of the velvet chair cushion, almost hidden. You see the glint of tarnished silver, another key. It seems identical to the one you saw earlier. Do the objects hold the keys, or do the keys simply unlock more objects? The ambiguity is unsettling, hinting at a deeper, cyclical nature to the store's secrets. You feel a strange pull towards the back of the store, an urgency that wasn't there before, as if the breathing is calling you home. The air thickens further, the scent of damp earth and metal growing stronger, almost overwhelming. You press deeper into the store's interior, the rhythmic breathing now a constant, low thrum beneath your awareness. The aisles twist and turn, losing all sense of direction or scale. It feels as though you have walked for hours, yet the entrance seems impossibly far behind you. A distant memory blurred by dust. The atmospheric detail is the sound of the dust itself. It seems to whisper, but dry, sibilant rustle as it settles, as it shifts, as it breathes with the store. You can hear it clinging to your clothes, settling on your skin. The central supernatural event is a moment of impossible vision. You turn a corner and see briefly a reflection in a tall, dust-coated mirror leaning against a wall. It is not your own reflection you see clearly, but that of a vast, dark space stretching out behind you, filled with countless, indistinct shapes piled to the ceiling, shrouded in an oppressive gloom. It is a glimpse of the back, But it is not a room. It is a void teeming with shadowed forms. Then the reflection shimmers, distorts, and shows only your own dusty image, eyes wide with terror. The psychological fracture is complete. You no longer trust your senses, your memory, or even the solidity of the world around you. You are adrift in a reality dictated by the store. The motif of objects and dust culminates in this vision. The countless shapes in the reflection are the objects, the inventory. But they are also something else, something living and vast. The key motif reappears, not as a physical object, but as a fleeting thought, a memory of trying to turn a key that wouldn't fit a lock you couldn't find. The ambiguous line settles heavily upon you. Are you lost within the collection, or are you simply adding to it? The question doesn't feel rhetorical. It feels like a statement of your current state. You are no longer a visitor. You are something else, becoming part of the store's strange anatomy. You find yourself standing before a doorway shrouded in thick, hanging tapestries, so heavy with dust they seem to sag under their own weight. This must be the source of the breathing, the entrance to the back. There is no handle, no frame, just an opening suggested by the hanging fabric and the deep, resonant exhalation emanating from within. The dust motes here are larger, almost visible particles dancing in the faint light that escapes from behind the tapestries. Like a living cloud. The atmospheric detail is the smell that pours from the gap in the fabric, a concentrated version of the store's peculiar scent, sweeter, heavier, cloying, like thousands of years of forgotten memories decaying at once. It is the smell of presence. The central supernatural event is the feeling of being drawn forward, not by your own will, but by an external, irresistible force. It is a gentle, firm tug, pulling you into the gap between the tapestries. There is no struggle, no fight left in you. As you are drawn in, the dust rises, swirling around you, coating your face, filling your mouth with its dry taste. It is no longer just on the objects. It is part of the air, part of you. The psychological fracture manifests as a profound sense of peace, a surrender. The terror is gone, replaced by an eerie acceptance, as if this is where you always belonged. The motif of dust and objects culminates in this moment of assimilation. You feel yourself becoming one with the dusty air, the dust-covered objects. The key motif fades. There are no more locks to open, no more secrets to uncover, only absorption. The ambiguous line is whispered on the edge of hearing, carried on the outgoing breath. You are not alone anymore. You step through the opening, or perhaps you are simply folded into the space. The breathing is everywhere now, inside you, around you, the sound of the store expanding and contracting, collecting its latest piece. The breathing continues, a slow, steady inhale and exhale that is now the rhythm of your existence. It is not a sound you hear with your ears, but a vibration you feel deep within, a sympathetic pulse that matches your own altered state. The horror's impact was not destruction, but transformation. You are still here, undeniably, yet not you. The individual edges have blurred, softened by the pervasive dust that is no longer merely on the surfaces around you, but has become an intrinsic part of your being. It clings to your skin like a second gray layer, settles on your eyelashes, fills your lungs with each slow, shared breath. You are an object now, perhaps, standing silently on a shelf you cannot see, part of the store's endless, dust-shrouded inventory. Your fate is assimilation. The back was not a place to be entered, but a state to be joined. Your identity, the memories of the rain, the street outside, your own name, they are all dissolving like old photographs dipped in water, leaving behind only a lingering dusty residue. Your mind is not broken in a violent shatter, but smoothly fused. The edges of your consciousness softening and merging with the store's strange, quiet reality. The paranormal horror is not an active threat, but an enduring condition, the silent, hungry presence of the store and its perpetual collection. The recurring motif of dust is now the fabric of your being, a constant reminder of this new, unmoving existence. The silence is no longer unsettling. It is a comforting blanket, broken only by the shared, rhythmic breath. There are no more keys to turn, no doors to open, only the shelves, the dust, and the waiting. Was this always inevitable? Is the store simply collecting, piece by piece, waiting for the next curious step through the door? The answers are lost in the settling dust, unspoken, unknowable. You are part of the collection now, the silent shape in the vast, breathing space that is the back of the store. And if you hear it again tonight, don't answer. Not yet.